join us shortly. Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Bonnie Hagan, the co-chair of the Westchester Jewish Council Greening Committee, and I'm here today with my co-chair, Evan Kingsley, and Westchester Jewish Council's Assistant Executive Director, Pam Goldstein, our committee members, Bob Schloss, Gabriel Lomas, Michael Scheffler, and our speaker, Kerron Celestine from the Con Edison Electric Vehicle Power Ready program, and of course, all of you. As you know, we're still in the midst of a crisis in Israel and the world, and the Jewish community in Westchester is deeply affected, but we're also resilient and committed to continuing to do good in every place we can, and doing good for the environment is something we can and should continue to act upon. So welcome everybody, and thank you for being here today and continuing to take steps to do good and improve the environment. The agenda for today is a little bit different than usual. First, we'll go around and do our brief introductions. Then Pam will give us any WJC news or updates. And then here's the new part. Evan will be doing an exercise with everyone and he'll explain it before the presentation. Then Kerron of Con Ed will make his presentation and we'll have time for Q&A. And finally, we'll close with the second part of Evan's exercise. So now let's go around the room and introduce ourselves. Please just say your name and the organization you're representing. Once you finish, please pick the person next to you on your screen, announce their name, and then they will be the next person to introduce themselves. We'll do this until everyone is introduced, and then Pam will make her announcements and I'll introduce the guest speaker for today. So I'm Bonnie Hagan and I'm representing WJC Greening Committee. And I pick Evan Kingsley.
And I'm Evan Kingsley, and I'm a co-chair with Bonnie. I'm a member of Pleasantville Community Synagogue in Pleasantville. Marcy?
Hi, I'm Marcy Modica. I am the Vice President of Congregation Emmanuel of Westchester, and I am next to Pam Goldstein in the box.
Hi, I'm from Westchester Jewish Council. Thank you all so much for being here. We are really honored to have you, and I'm going to kick it off to Bob.
Hi, I'm Bob Schloss. I'm a member of Congregation Sons of Israel in Briarcliff Manor, and I'll turn it over to Mark.
Hi, Mark Harrell in Westchester Jewish Center in Mamaroneck, and I'll pass it off to Karen.
Hi, I'm Karen Sabbath, chair of the Green Team at Charade Tefillah in Bedford, and I'll pass it over to Gigi.
Well, good morning, everybody. I am Gigi Zeller, and I am with Karen, my esteemed leader at Charade Tefillah for Green Team. And nice to see you all.
Who do you want to pass it to, Gigi?
Oh, sorry. Well, who's next to me? Pam is next. Oh, how about Karen?
Hi, my name is Kerron Celestine. I'm a program manager at Con Edison. And on my screen, everybody has, let's see who's left on the screen to pass it on to. I could pass it on to Andy.
Hi, I'm Andy. Okay, sorry.
Because everybody else next to me. I'm Andy Farber. I am co-chair of the Environmental Task Force at Woodlands Community Temple, also the immediate past president. Adi.
Hi, I'm Adi Rosenfeld. I'm the executive director at Westchester Torah Academy. I'm from New Rochelle, and I will pass it to Shoshana.
Shalom. I'm so happy to be here. I've been in Irvington Woods the entire morning. It's gorgeous. So it's perfect to be here now. I'm the rabbi of Hebrew Congregation of Somers, as well as Pleasantville Community Synagogue, along with my co-rabbi, Ben Newman, with whom I share children, dogs, and a home.
Who do you want to pass it to, Shoshana?
Oh, I'm sorry. Well, I was late, so I don't know who has spoken yet. Evan, have you introduced yourself yet?
Yeah, so let's pass it along to Bruce Fryer. Maybe I don't know if you've spoken yet. All right, Bruce, maybe we'll go to Robin Rosenberg next. Robin, introduce yourself. Well, she's just joining.
I literally just joined. Yeah,
Okay.
I just joined. Sorry, I'm doing a couple things at once.
Yeah.
I'm Robin Rosenberg. I'm actually president of the Greenberg Hebrews Center, so I'm working on a few things at the same time,
That's right.
and also one of the founding members of our Green Team. So been involved in the Green Team, and happy to be here.
Great. Thank you. I don't think Jack went. Jack?
No. Hi, I'm Jack Zinn. I'm the treasurer at WJC. I'm also the treasurer of my synagogue, Congregation Sons of Israel in Briarcliff, along with Bob Schloss, and just very interested in this topic. I'm also a former Green Team committee member as well. And I think, David, have you gone?
Hi. David Sorkin. I'm the environmental sustainability consultant with UJA Federation, and I'm thrilled to join in on this incredible work this group does.
Thank you, David. Matt, are you there?
I am. Nice to see you.
Thank you. Please introduce yourself and say where you're from.
Matt McSorley, Senior Director of Operations for JCC Midwest Chester.
Great. Thank you for joining us, Matt. Okay, I think everybody introduced themselves. Pam, you want to give us a little update?
Yes, I will be very brief. And again, thank you so much for all of you joining and taking the time today. Just wanted to let you know the council had a very successful gala on January 27th, wonderful honorees, amazing support from the community. So thank you all for all that you do every day with your own communities, and all of that helps the council help our Jewish community in Westchester. So thank you for that. Also just wanted to let you know that the council has been actively working with our 133 member organizations to help galvanize support for Israel, obviously since October 7th, and so much more. And it's been a very positive response, and we are so lucky to be in this community. So thank you all.
Thank you, Pam. And over to you, Evan.
After Kerron speaks, and we'll have a Q&A, time permitting, I'd like to do something that I'd call a round robin. If you could now start to think about one good thing that your institution has or is doing to improve the environment, one greening initiative, one change that you've made in your practices. We'll do a round robin at the end of our call, because we all learn best from our peers and from each other. There may be an idea that one person puts forward, something that they've done that sparks an idea for you, that makes you say, that's something that we could do. So put your thinking caps on, come up with the one good thing that you'd like to share, and I will turn it back to Bonnie now to introduce Kerron for a presentation that I, for one, am really looking forward to, and I know we all are.
Thank you, Evan. I'm pleased to introduce to you Kerron Celestine, who is the Electric Vehicle Development and Outreach Manager for the Con Ed e-mobility programs, including the Light Duty Electric Vehicle Power Ready program. He will review with us the ins and outs of installing the infrastructure for EV chargers, including rebate eligibility, rebate amounts, program requirements, eligible equipment, approved contractors, service rulings, operational and reporting requirements, and more. Please put your questions in the chat and we will address them during the Q&A sessions. So without further ado, I introduce you to Kerron Celestine.
Okay, thank you, Bonnie, and good afternoon, everyone. Great meeting everyone. So I'm going to share my screen, but as my screen is popping up on there, just to give you a little bit of background on kind of what I do at Con Edison. So as Bonnie stated, I am a program manager at Con Edison, and I started with the company maybe about 3 years ago. And one of the great things, the reason I started in this position was to, as Evan stated, doing something good for the environment at the end of the day. My basic function every day is mission driven in terms of helping folks like yourself install EV chargers and anything to do with EVs at the end of the day when it comes to electrification of charging for the EVs, and also incentives to help manage the charging, right? folks in terms of timeframes that folks are charging their vehicles. So today I'll go through kind of what we have to offer and answer a lot of your questions that you may have out there. So just starting off, pretty much Con Edison, when we look at these initiatives that we're doing, you could see that there are 4 buckets that we focus on. The first bucket is the infrastructure incentives, which is programs like Power Ready Light Duty installation for chargers. And then we also have a pilot for medium heavy duty vehicles in the marketplace. Then we also do what's called managed charging. So managed charging is basically we're giving incentives to folks after they have installed the chargers to help them in terms of the demand charges, right? So we know that demand charges for EVs, especially when it comes to the fast chargers, could be quite expensive. So we do have incentives to help kind of bridge that gap in terms of the price of the bill with these incentives. And then it's also customer education and support, right? So we're trying to be good partners in this field. We know this is new technology, and we want to provide the best guidance as we consider ourselves to be expert, right? So helping folks understand what is the right ways to go about electrifying for EVs when it comes to their parking structures, garages, whatever the case may be. And then also we do pilot programs like demo programs. I was talking to Evan prior. We did have a partnership with New York City DOT in terms of installing curbside chargers, right? So chargers on the street that folks could park their cars and charge their vehicles while they go up to their apartment building or whatever the case is. So definitely we're all encompassing, trying to really push New York State mandates. Our goal, right, our overall goal is to have 50 million chargers installed within our territory by 2050. And I'm sorry, 1 million, sorry, I said 50, by 2050, by 2050. So that's our
What was
goal.
the territory exactly that you're
Oh, yeah.
installing?
Yeah, our territory for Con Edison is the 5 boroughs, and Westchester is our territory.
Wow.
And it's 1 million by 2050 is our plan to install chargers. So moving along, so as I said, we have different programs. Our first program that we started with was our EV Light Duty Power Ready program. And what this program is, it's providing funding to offset utility and customer side costs for installation of chargers for light duty vehicles. And what utility and customer side costs really means is basically before the property line, which is Con Edison owned, right? So like your transformer before the property line, or any of those mechanics before the property line that we own, we provide incentives there. And then also we provide incentives after the property line up to the charging station. And I'll give you a better breakdown on the other slides of exactly what that looks like. Great news about the program, we just got refunded. So we started this program with, I believe, about $234 million in incentives. And today we just got refunded back in November. So now we have $613 million in incentives. We expect the program to go till 2025, but we're pushing every day to ask the state to continue having more funding so we could go past 2025, as we believe this is an endeavor that will go past that time frame on there. So I'll go on to the next slide to kind of give you a better understanding of what utility and customer side upgrades mean. So as you look at this particular diagram, as you can see, the utility side upgrade, right? Everything before that property line. So utility transformer, the utility service, all those properties that we own, that's what we incentivize. And then we also incentivize past the property line. So if you wanted to do like you needed design, like soft costs on design, permitting, all of that, we also incentivize wiring, the customer switch gear. The only thing that we don't incentivize past the property line is the charging stations themselves. That's something that will be out of pocket to the customer. But really great news is NYSERDA does offer rebates up to about $4,000 per port towards L2 chargers. And I'll explain exactly what L2 versus DCFC means in a couple other slides coming up. But this is kind of what we incentivize, which we believe is really good for the market in terms of offsetting those costs that comes with installing EV chargers in parking structures. So in terms of how, so I guess I'll take it a little bit back. I thought I did have this slide in there, but I'm just going to explain L2 chargers and DCFC. So there is three types of chargers that you can utilize to charging an EV vehicle. The first one is level 1, right? So level 1 charger would be considered anything that you pretty much like you could plug in like a trickle charge into your regular outlet, the 120 volt outlet, and charge a vehicle. Those usually take a very long time to fully charge an EV vehicle. They could take anywhere from 16 to about 26 hours to charge a vehicle. The next level up from there would be your level 2 chargers, which are 240 volts, and they take about 6 to 8 hours to really fully charge a vehicle. They're a great application in the sense that folks are able to, you drive to work, come back home, you plug it in, and tomorrow you have a full charge again in that particular vehicle. So they're really great for that type of application, like your house, multifamily buildings, any of those, they're very useful. The next charger up from there is called level 3, but usually it's called a fast charger or DC fast charger because it uses DC current. They're usually 480 volts, so they use a lot of power. They charge vehicles very quickly in the sense that they take about, I've seen the newer versions charge vehicles in around 22, I've heard, all the way to 30 minutes in that time frame, according to the specs of the vehicle also. But they're really, really quick chargers. These are you usually see in like the highway stop points. So you'll see them in highway routes, right? You don't want to be spending 6 hours if you're driving from New York to maybe Florida, try to charge. So that's where they're very predominantly seen. They are also seen in like charging hub areas may have these fast chargers. They're very expensive to install, so I'll talk about that also. But in terms of how our program is structured, in terms of how we structure the incentives, we have the incentives in a what we call an up to percentage. And the way we look at it is if the chargers are publicly accessible, you get more funding towards the project. If they're non-publicly accessible, you get less funding. So as you can see in this particular diagram or breakdown, sorry, you can see that if your chargers are publicly accessible, you could get like up to 90%. If they're not, you get up to 50%. When it comes to the left where it says priority plugs and non-priority plugs, so priority plugs simply just mean like if the charger only charges one manufacturer, like let's say you purchase a charger and it only charges Tesla vehicles, that will be considered a priority plug. A non-priority plug is just a universal plug type. It's able to charge any vehicle that pulls up. So let's say you pull up with a Chevy Bolt, Tesla, Rivian, whatever the case is, it will charge any vehicle that pulls up to that chargers. Now, just a little bit of disclaimer, we don't have a lot of chargers in the market that only charge one vehicle. Tesla and CHAdeMO was the two. They're being phased out because it just doesn't make sense, right, to kind of just have a charger that charges one vehicle anymore, as we have a variety of different vehicles in the marketplace. So we're seeing that these are being phased out. The newer chargers people are using are the chargers that charge any vehicles. And then also Tesla is partnering with a lot of manufacturers to kind of onboard them into being able to use the Tesla charger. So that's the great news. They have this adapter that is enabling them to sign deals with like Chevy and Ford, in which they'll be able to use the Tesla chargers. So that's a really good deal for everyone because Tesla has the best layout of chargers, being that they have been in the market for a long time. So going back to this breakdown, pretty much if you are installing a non-priority charger and it's a public site, that the public is going to have what we call free access to the charging stations. And what that means is that if you're going to charge folks to enter that parking structure, then it won't be publicly accessible. Yeah. But the good news is you could still charge folks to use the actual chargers, the KWs, right? The electricity. So they get free access to the parking garage, but you're going to charge them per hour, whatever the case is, to use the actual electricity for those particular chargers. So you still could kind of recuperate some of that cost for the chargers. So as I said, if you have a public site, non-priority chargers, you could get up to 90%. And then also we do have a 100% tier. It's right now it's in waitlist because we had a backlog of folks that applied to the 100% tier. But to be approved for that 100% tier, you need to either be installing a DC fast charger, and then we have a map which shows what's called a disadvantaged community. It's a map built by NYSERDA that has disadvantaged communities and also environmentally justice areas that we offer this 100% tier to. So if you are installing DCFCs within that area, you could receive up to 100% tier. Also, if you're doing L2 multifamily building installation on a multifamily building and you're installing L2s, you could also get the 100% tier if you have 80% of the clients, the tenants are AMI, which is the area media income in there. And then also if you're doing a project that you're putting on the curbside L2 project and it's on the curb, and it's in that L2, you could also be in that up to 100% tier also. Now, this is how the incentives are calculated. And I'm going to say they're very confusing, but I'm just going to kind of give you a high level of how much money you could potentially earn. The way the incentives are structured is on a sense of L2 and DCFC. So it's according to which chargers you're installing. So as you can see, we have the tiers, right? The up to 50, up to 90, up to 100% tier. So whichever tier you fall into, this is a calculation we use to kind of say how much funding you could ultimately get. So basically, let's say your site is in the up to 90% tier. You could earn, in terms of incentives, is $9,000 per plug as your baseline, right? So you're installing 2 plugs, that would be $18,000 that you could potentially earn for everything that I said was eligible under that green bar in the first couple slides. And then we also have what we call some bonuses that we offer. So the first bonus that we offer for L2 is a speed bonus. And what that is, once you sign, and I'll go through the process so you understand this a little more clearly. Once you sign the program agreement, you have 6 months in which you install to get the project installed, and then you could earn an additional $1,800 per plug on top of the $9,000. And then also, we have another bonus, which is a large project bonus. So if you're installing 25 plus plugs, you could also earn another $2,700 per plug, which will take your max incentives per plug to be $13,500 per plug. So as you can see, there's a lot of incentives that's available for L2. So definitely something to take advantage of with this grading funding that we have. Then on the DCFC side, it's a little more complicated, so I'll try to keep it really, really fundamental on kind of how I explain this. But in terms of the DCFC side, this is the breakdown of how the incentives are calculated. So if you're in that 90% tier, it's a calculation on the KWs of the DCFC chargers. So each DCFC chargers, they have what they call this KW breakdown of how much KWs that charger could, capacity that charger has. So typically, DCFC charger could range anywhere from 50 kW all the way up to 50 kW. And what that kW means in just regular terminology is that it will help the vehicle charge faster. Remember when I said that the DCFC could take anywhere from 22 all the way up to 30 minutes to charge a vehicle? The more kWs a charger has, the faster it could charge a vehicle. So what we do in terms of calculation is look at each of those chargers kW. So let's say the chargers that you're purchasing are 100 kW. We will multiply it by that base cost gap. So we'll say $720 multiplied by 100, and that will give you how much incentives you could earn as the base cost gap. And then we have some bonuses that go with the DCFCs. So as you can see, we have an accelerated bill pad bonuses, which you could earn for load management. And load management is technologies that help lower the amount of output of the chargers. And the reason that you will want this technology, just to break this down, is if the way that rates are calculated for your bill in off-peak time frame, your rates for your bill are lower. So off-peak meaning that when folks are not using the system, which usually is around 12 a.m. To 8 a.m. is usually when most New Yorkers are not using any energy, right? Folks are sleeping. So we charge you less if you use energy in that time frame. So you could kind of limit throughout the day how much power you want to put out into the project or into the charger, throughout the day, and then open it up later time frame. So that way, if folks are charging later, they could get full access to the amount of power that the chargers could put out. So that's what load management is. It helps you kind of scale the cost of the demand for using these chargers. And then we offer another speed bonus and in this accelerated pad. So this will take from 720 kW on the base all the way up the max to being 855. And then we have a charger hub pathway, which gives you an additional $225 per kW, which will take, if you were to go this way, it would take you to 945. So the bonuses are confusing, but just know there's a lot of funding. And if you have projects, reach out to me and I'll definitely explain this in depth so you kind of understand on the DCFC side on there. All right, so now just in terms of, participation in the program, anyone can participate in the program. The person that participate or sign the program agreement for the program is responsible for reporting and also responsible for receiving the payment. The only caveat to that is if you're a contractor, you need to be an approved contractor. It's a very simple process. It takes about 5 minutes. So you can use any contractor that you want to develop your project, but they just need to be an approved contractor, which means they'll go to the joint utility website. It takes about 5 minutes. They'll fill out their information, company name, and then they'll check off on some boxes if they're registered to work in New York State, and if they have a license to do electrical work. And then they'll become approved within five days. So that's the only requirement in terms of participation. And then the other requirement that we have is just some technical requirements when it comes to the chargers. Nothing too crazy. It's just a standard in terms of securing when folks use their credit card at the charging stations. This was something that wasn't there before, but as we kind of go into this digital world, we know that we want to protect our customers' billing information and to protect the servers that these chargers are on, because most chargers are smart chargers, right? They're able to collect data in terms of charging folks to use the chargers, charging customer data, that type of stuff. So the regulators want to make sure that they protect customers' information. So that's pretty much it for the chargers. You can use any charger once they have these particular charging requirements on there. Then some other operational requirements to participate in the program. So basically, we have some quarterly reporting. It's very basic reporting that we look at New York State has a third-party company called Atlas that gathers data for New York State. And the data that they look at is just kind of the breakdown of what the chargers are doing in terms of how much kWs are being used per hour. What's the charging session length? Like, is it folks charging 4 hours, 5 hours, 1 hour, whatever the case is. So New York State kind of collects that data on a minimum for 5 years. So that's quarterly reporting. The other requirement that I always like to talk about is New York State also just implemented this change, which is they want easy identifiable contact information. So talking about, when we first started, and this happened in California a lot, where folks will pull up to a charging station and they won't be like, the charging station is not working, and there was no contact information for folks to reach out to put in that the chargers had an issue. So New York State has said, hey, if you're going to be using this funding, we just want to make sure on those chargers that there is some sort of contact, so folks could say, hey, this charger is down, it's not working, and that way the charger operator could send someone out to kind of fix that charger and get it back up and running on there. And this was the reporting aspect, pretty much in terms of kind of the data that New York State collects through that third-party company. And pretty much it's just charging information. I would say, best advice I usually give to site hosts and developers when choosing a charger that you want to install, just make sure that the charger is what we call network based. That makes it a lot easier. You kind of set it and forget it, and the company will kind of send this information on your behalf for the third party company. So it makes it a lot easier that you don't have to kind of schedule yourself to kind of get this data to that third party company on there. All right. So now this is our process, what we utilize. As you can see, there's 3 segments of the process through the program. I'm not going to drain this. I'm just going to give you the really high level. Basically, all you do is you submit an application through our Salesforce portal. Your contractor will then submit an engineering application, which is built on some documentation that the contractor will build, like your site plan, load letter, those technical pieces. And then our engineering team will review that information. And then they will give you what we call a determination of how much incentives you could get back, or if there is utility site upgrades, right, that we need to do before the property line. So let's say there's not enough capacity, we would say we need to step up the fee to this particular building, whatever the case is. So they'll give you all that information at that point. Once that has been done, you will see the program agreement, see exactly how much funding you're getting, and then you could sign off on that program agreement. And then once you do that, you'll start construction. If we were coming in to do any type of utility site construction, we'll do it right after you completed your construction. We'll energize the project, and then we'll do what we call a site visit and just verify the site. And then you'll submit all your invoices, documents, all of those great things to us, and then we will process your payment. And then you'll just start your reporting to New York State third-party company Atlas. And this is pretty much the process. I would say on average, from start to end, it varies between L2 and DCFC. L2, we say about 6 months to kind of get the project completed. On the DCFC side, I would say about 9. If there's no utility site upgrade, right? That's if we got to come in and build out the system. But if there's utility site upgrades, it'll take a little bit longer, usually in the range of 1.5 year time frame, according to what is needed to be done in the utility site upgrade. And that's pretty much it on the Power Ready program. Now I'll just go through another program that we offer that we just started, which I'm really excited about. It's our Smart Charge Commercial program. And this is the program that helps folks in terms of, hey, I installed the chargers and, folks are really excited that you're using the chargers and my demand charges are a little bit high. How could you help me? That question of how could Con Edison help in terms of kind of relieving some of that cost. So Basically, this particular program, we started in January 19th. We rolled this out. And basically, we're offering folks incentives for kind of charging in what we call off-peak and overnight timeframes. And basically, the way this program works, and I'll skip along, this is kind of the incentive breakdown, and I won't get too technical, there's a lot happening here, but basically it works on two concepts. It works on midnight to 8 a.m. If you were to charge in that time frame when no one is using the network, we'll give you 3 cents per kilowatt, and that's the measurement of the electricity. So we'll give you 3 cents per kilowatts on there. And then the other payment structure that we have in conjunction with the off-peak payment structure is they're what we call these peak timeframes, right? Network timeframes. So let's say you live, and I'll use Brooklyn. If you live in Crown Heights of Brooklyn, and that's a particular area, that area's most peak time when everybody's on the network might be 2 to 6, right? If you were to able to reduce the amount of charging that happens in that time frame, we'll pay you incentives according to the time frame. So as you can see, from June to September, if you're in that 4-hour window, we're going to give you $10 per kW if you avoid charging in that time frame. And I do have a slide that kind of helps illustrates this a little more easier for everyone to kind of digest. So like I said, right, you want to reduce charging in those timeframes. So we're saying if you had one DCFC charger and you were able to reduce charging by 50%, you could potentially get $2,800 annually. And added to that, you're also still earning for folks charging from 12 a.m. to 8 a.m. So you're still earning more money. So it could be potentially more than just the 2,800 for having one DCFC charger installed. And this is to help kind of with those demand charges on your bill. And it's not a bill credit. It's actually, we're going to pay you out monthly separate from your from a bill credit on there. Right. And also just to one thing to go back, this particular site, which is our calculator, helps folks calculate the cost of how much they should expect their bill to be. So you'll go in and you could play around with this site, add in like, hey, I want to install 2 chargers, and kind of play around with the time frames that the charger will be utilized. And you could get estimations on how much that bill will look like. And it also shows you calculations on how much money you can make from the Smart Charge commercial program also. So really great tool, really helpful. I think it's amazing. And this might be like the first step, just playing around, just kind of seeing kind of what those charges could ultimately be at the end of the day. And it's just a process. I'm not going to drain it. It's very simple. You submit an application, you get it reviewed, and then they start the data. They collect data to know how much you're reducing those charging times, and then they pay you out on it. So it's a very simple process for this particular program. I'm not going to go through this one because we haven't started this program, but the last thing I'll talk about, something, when I talk about trying to be good partners in this deal, as we talk to different site hosts and folks that are interested in making these installations, the question always come up like, hey, does my building or does my community have enough power to install these chargers? And we're here to help answer that question because, folks might be looking into buying a piece of or leasing a piece of property and they want to know how much do I have to put into the infrastructure. So we have this program that's called our Con Edison Advisory Service. And what we do is you fill out a basic application, kind of telling us kind of what you want to do. And our engineering team, it takes about 2 to 3 weeks. They'll review the application and then they'll get on a call and kind of go over potentially what you're looking at in terms of construction, how much capacity, or what is needed for upgrades, or even sometimes they may look at, like, let's say you look at this particular spot, they might say, there's a lot of upgrades that are needed. They might suggest other areas or properties that you may own and say this might be a better property for you to utilize for this project if you want to get it done sooner. So this is a very helpful tool that we do offer, and it gets you a chance to talk to the engineering team. I don't even get to talk to them, so I should be honored. But that's one of the tools that we offer, and it's very helpful in terms of going through the process and making those decisions when it comes to installing these chargers. And that is pretty much it. Is there, I guess, Bonnie, is there questions in the chat? Or
Yeah, there's a handful of questions in the chat. Evan, do you want to field them or?
Yeah, I'm happy to. And maybe, Kerron, if you don't mind taking down the PowerPoint, that way we can all see each other.
Yeah, sure.
Just slide that over. Great. There are so many questions. Let's start with the question of what we mean by publicly accessible. Kerron, in many cases, the people on the screen are executives at a Jewish community center, like a YMCA type facility, or they're executives at a school or a synagogue of all sizes. Which of those would count as publicly accessible parking lots?
Yeah, great question. So in terms of when we look at publicly accessible, the way it's written in the laws from New York State is any site that gives free access to an EV driver, right? So I could tell you, let's say, let me try to use a good example. Okay, yeah. So like a multifamily building, right? That would be considered non-publicly accessible at the end of the day, right? Tenants only the ones that park in that parking garage. But I have known landlords or site hosts to say like, hey, I want to maximize my incentives, so I'm going to open up that parking garage to be publicly accessible and offer the public to enter that parking garage. And now they have become publicly accessible. And when I mean the public, it's just EV owners, right? So you have an EV vehicle, you pull up, you charge that vehicle, that makes it publicly accessible. Or even a parking garage, right? Parking garage also would say, hey, I want to maximize my incentive. So what if I allow EV drivers not to pay to enter, but I'll charge them, I'll bill them for using the electricity, then they'll become publicly accessible. So that's the way it could change. So that's why I won't say like, oh, like the synagogue is or not, because it all depends on the site host at the end of the day, what their decision is on kind of that law or how that law is written.
And for example, for synagogues, there may be an issue around being open on the Sabbath. So for example, from Friday evening to Saturday evening, they may need to restrict access because that institution doesn't allow for the use of electricity. But those are details that I guess we could think through. But I just want to get the sense of what we mean by publicly accessible.
Yeah, and I can answer that part. So also in that law, it is business hours, right? So if the synagogue is closed, then they could that would still get them into being publicly accessible.
That's great. That's great. There was a question about the actual cost of this. We understand that there are significant incentives, but 90% of $100,000 is still leaves you with $10,000. 90% of $20,000 leaves you only with $4,000 or $2,000 in expenses. So what does it really cost an institution to put in, say, 3 chargers?
In terms of, cost could vary. It all depends on kind of what you're installing. So you got the way that I could sum this up in terms of, you got the Lamborghini of chargers, and then you have your other varieties of chargers out there. And then, it's all about your developer or your contractor at the end of the day and kind of what needs to happen. So cost could go a wide range in terms of just 3 chargers, in one scenario to another. Typically, I would say like 3 chargers, you could be anywhere in maybe like, it ranges so much, 5,000 all the way up to maybe 20. It all depends on kind of what you're looking at. Because reasoning
I'd just
is
like to add to that, as a contractor who does this, I've seen people get no cost just because they're able to combine the Con Ed money with the NYSERDA money. So that's, it depends how, the eligibility for both programs and the types of chargers, and also the infrastructure that's required. Some people require, excavation because they have blacktop parking lot and the wires need to go under, and some people don't, so it really
Yeah,
depends
Bonnie's
on the
on.
conditions.
Yeah. And
I
Bonnie
think
knows better.
the answer to everybody on the screen is don't let the dollars scare you. There may be a way to do this fairly inexpensively if it's something that your institution sees as a great value to your members and to the community. And the next question is really about that. While the individual is paying for the use of electricity, are they paying you, the institution, say the synagogue or the JCC? Are they paying Con Edison? And is there a way to differentiate so that, say, if I'm a member of the synagogue, I have a lower price on the electricity than if I'm not? How does that work, Kerron or Bonnie?
Yeah, sure. So yeah, definitely. Yeah. So in terms of when they're paying to utilize the charging station, that definitely goes to whoever, maybe the site host or the operator of the chargers. That money goes to them. Con Edison only focuses on the bill aspect of it. You're paying your bill. And in terms of in terms of New York State doesn't have a mandate of how much you could charge and how much you shouldn't charge. They only ask that you don't price gouge. That's the only mandate that they have for us. So we don't have particulars on how much you could charge or not. And then also, can you repeat that last part of the question? I think I got a little
yes,
bit off
might there
track
be a
on this one.
differentiation? Let's say you're a member. Could there be a different rate for a member versus a non-member?
Yeah, so recently our bylaws changed. What New York State is saying is that before, let's say in a multifamily building, the tenants would have a different rate versus folks that are coming from outside. New York State is saying that if it's going to be publicly accessible, everyone has to have the same rate on there.
Okay.
So yes.
Fair enough. And that would mean that a synagogue, a JCC, or a school would really think about it as a public benefit. And there are certain advantages to being able to say it's not just for the people who are affiliated with my institution, but it's for everybody in the community. There are a few more questions as well, so I'll pause for a second and see if there's anything that I didn't cover from my quick read that anybody would like to ask, and just please put your hand up.
You know what, Karen mentioned that she's in NYSEG territory, but I do know the Power Ready program is throughout New York State. Kerron, are there a lot of differences between what Con Ed offers and what NYSEG, for instance, might offer?
Yeah, great question. So yes, so there's the Power Ready program in all the joint utilities throughout New York. The only difference that may come up is how much the payouts may potentially be, because Con Edison has a larger territory and more customers. We get higher incentives from New York State, higher dollars from New York State. So the incentives may be different in terms, but the laws should be the same throughout the joint utility of New York. So NYSEG will have the program, but the numbers might be different in terms of how much they offer.
I'm going to ask Mark Carell next, and then Marcy, if you had a question, we'll go to you next.
Yeah, just to follow up, I put a question in the chat about shutting down the EV stations during the Jewish Sabbath and holidays and the like. And after I posed the question, I saw there was a slide that mandated, I think it was 95% operation. So that would actually mean you could not shut it off during the Sabbath. There are 52 full days a year, the Sabbath, 1/7 of the calendar, plus holidays. So it seems like, and of course it's 24 plus hours that it has to be off. So it seems like to answer that question, an institution could not turn off for that amount of time and still get the incentives. Is that correct?
So it's
Kerron said
the way that
it's
we're
the
looking at
business
it is
hour.
more. Yeah, but to answer Mark's question about a particular slide, it is about operational timeframes. It needs to be up in the sense that you cannot have a charger not working like for a long period of time. So if your business is closed, like we have we have like dealerships, right? They have their business 9 to whatever 10 o'clock. Once they're closed, no one is able to use that charger, right? But the charger is still operational; it's working. What New York State is looking at is the operational time frame that a charger is down.
Right.
So it's not working; it's completely offline.
I brought this up a year or two ago with our clergy, and they said they're very much totally against it being operational, of congregants coming to services to charge during services. So the synagogue is open for business, right? It's it's a synagogue, it's a religious institution, and yet it would be off. So I just want to know whether, again, the way the incentive rules are written, whether this would disqualify such an institution.
Yeah, let me take that back, because I understand. Yeah, I understand where your question is leading to. Let me take that back to our program team, and I'll follow up with Bonnie, and she could definitely get you an answer for that.
Bonnie can reach out to me and everybody. Great, thanks.
Marcy, did you have a question that you want to ask? Okay. Any other questions around the screen?
I think David had asked about
David.
nonprofit agencies and other grants. I mean, I think Kerron kind of said before that it depends on the technology, and there's also that NYSERDA grant. But Kerron, are you aware of other grants that can help not-for-profits cover this cost if the Con Ed and the NYSERDA program together can't?
I haven't heard of other programs, but we are very open to stacking on a program. So if you were to find another program that does offer funding, we're all about stacking onto our program. So we won't disqualify you for using other programs if they're out there.
All right. Bob Schloss?
Yeah, I had written in the chat, we made Con Ed could provide us with a list of religious institutions that have been through this, and hearing Mark's questions, certainly it would be incumbent upon some of us on this screening council to speak to any that are part of the Jewish community and hear about their experience. But I'd be happy to speak to non-Jewish organizations too and hear about their experience.
I think that's a great point, Bob. So for example, Kerron, if we knew that there were several churches and synagogues in Westchester that had already done this, it would be inspirational to everybody else, right?
I will definitely take this back. There is, I would just say disclaimer, there is some confidentiality issues as usual, but I'll take it back and see what I could clear and see what I could get over to you. And I'll follow up with you on this one, Bonnie, too.
Right. If a Catholic church in White Plains has done this and they had a great experience, it might make everybody else say like, oh, actually, we could do this too. I think that's a point well taken. We were going to spend some time. Go ahead.
No, I was going to say we do have case studies that we have done, which is publicly knowledge. I'll take a look and see if we have anything that lines up with any religious institutions out there. And I could also send over those case studies. They're really great to kind of get a perspective on what folks have done prior.
We were going to spend the last minutes of our call doing a round robin, but I know that's going to take longer than the 4 minutes or so that we have left. So if I'm going to table that part of our agenda and make it part of our next meeting. We hope to announce the date for the next meeting sometime within the next week and a half, 2 weeks. It'll most likely be mid-spring before Pesach. So you can look forward to that. I see Rabbi Shosh, you have your hand up. Let me give you the floor.
Thanks. I mentioned in the chat, we drive a Chevy Bolt and love it. And my kid goes to LaFell and I noticed there are barely any electric cars. So before we leave this whole conversation, I would love to talk about just general education about switching to electric cars, and that maybe this can be a team not just about greening our faith-based institutions, but greening Westchester and looking at your goal, which I was inspired by, of the 1 million charging stations by whatever it was, like that we can look at doing our part as a team to bringing more electric vehicles and more charging stations to Westchester as a team, not just our individual institutions doing whatever we're each going to be doing.
Hear, hear. The more we hear from people who have good experiences with their electric vehicles and have gotten over the range anxiety question.
We love our car.
Yeah.
It's so great. Oh, and I love the number 613. I don't know if you're aware, Kerron, but that's a big number for us. So when you said you had $613 million, it's the number of commandments in the Jewish tradition. So that
Great, I love it.
Anyway, thank you so much.
Yeah, thanks for a great presentation. In answer to David's question, yes, the PowerPoint will be available on our website in the greening. There's a greening page in which we always catalog the good work that this committee has done and everything that we've learned from. Bonnie, any closing remarks?
I just want to say thank you. Kerron will find out the answers to your questions and get back to me, and we'll include it in a follow-up email for you. And I just remind everybody, to fill out those greening checklists, and maybe you might want to put EV on it now, because we do use those checklists to gauge interest for future agendas based on your submissions. That's really it. I want to thank everybody. Thank you, Kerron. Thank you. Thank you.
See you all next time. Take care. Okay.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.